Today, we're taking a high-level look at the public review draft for AISC 360-27. Now, if you work with structural steel, you know this is the essential rulebook. And believe me, you're going to want to pay attention because some pretty big updates are headed your way.
Okay, let's just jump right in. For any of us in this industry, AISC 360 is basically the Bible. Well, the next version is on the horizon, and it's packing some of the most significant changes we've seen in a long time. So yeah, getting ahead of this curve is going to be crucial.
And I want to be really clear here. We're not talking about a few minor tweaks and adjustments. No, this is a full-on evolution of the specification. These changes are going to directly impact your day-to-day work. I mean, from the materials you choose to the core calculations you run, the moment they're adopted.
To really get what's happening, it helps to glance back real quick. You can see the specification is always evolving, right? From that first unified spec back in 05 to the big revisions in 10 and the refinements in 16. Well, this 2027 draft is the next massive step in that journey, and it's a big one, really doubling down on new tech and just expanding its reach.
So what's really behind this update? Well, a huge part of it is all about future-proofing. The steel industry is seeing some frankly incredible innovation right now in both materials and manufacturing, and the code has to keep up. And one of the most exciting new developments, the official inclusion of additive manufacturing, 3D printing. For the very first time, we're getting a whole section, A3.3, dedicated to requirements for 3D printed structural components. This is a huge deal. It's the industry saying, okay, this technology is here and it's ready for prime time. But that forward thinking doesn't stop with 3D printing. Not at all. The draft is also tackling things like designing for high temperatures, giving us specific rules for galvanized steel and new guidance on fabricating those tricky re-entrant corners. And you'll see a renewed focus on preventing brittle fracture, that sudden, catastrophic type of failure that gives engineers nightmares. It's a critical safety issue, and it's getting the attention it deserves. Okay, so we've talked about all the cool future stuff, but what about the here and now? What about the things that affect the calculations you're doing every single day? Well, the new spec is refining those core design principles too. All right, buckle up, because this is probably the single biggest change to your daily workflow. Chapter F, Flexural Member Design, is getting a complete overhaul. Section F2 is now going to be super specific, only covering rolled compact I-shapes and channels. And a brand new section F3 is being introduced for all those non-compact and slender elements. It's a fundamental shift, and it's going to require some relearning, but the goal is a much more accurate and consistent design approach. And the revisions are happening all over the place, not just in Chapter F. We're seeing important updates across the board. Chapter G on shear has new requirements for stiffeners. Torsion is actually moving out of Chapter H and into Chapter G to keep things grouped together logically. And we're seeing key updates for connections, welds, and composite design. It's truly a top-to-bottom refresh. Let's drill down on one example just to see the level of detail we're talking about. In Section J2.4, the update clarifies that fillet weld strength requirements apply specifically when that weld is restrained from rotating. Now, this might sound like just a tiny wording change, but it's not. It directly impacts how you calculate the strength of a super common connection, helping you make your designs that much more precise. Okay, so we've seen how the new draft is looking to the future and sharpening our core design tools. But it's also growing. It's expanding its scope to provide new guidance, and a big part of that is a major reorganization of the appendices. The appendices are getting a serious makeover. Appendix 5, which deals with existing structures, has been massively expanded. I mean, if you do any kind of retrofit work, this is an absolute game changer. There's also a totally new Appendix 9 for when you need to determine strength through actual physical testing. Plus, you'll find big updates for fire design and fatigue analysis. Now, one of the most telling changes, I think, is where they moved the first-order analysis method. It's been taken out of the main spec and placed in the commentary. That might seem like a small bit of housekeeping, but what it's really doing is shifting its role. It's a signal that it's now considered more of a supplementary guide than a primary method, a subtle but really significant shift in design philosophy. So, after all that, what does this actually mean for your next project? Let's break down the key takeaways for all you architects, engineers, and construction pros watching. So here's how you can start to get ready. First, embrace the innovation. Really get familiar with the new stuff like additive manufacturing. Second, dive deep into those core changes, especially that big overhaul in Chapter F. You'll need to know it inside and out. And third, make the appendices your new best friend.
Seriously, the expanded guidance in there, particularly for existing structures, is going to be invaluable. Look, I get it. Change can feel like a lot, but it's also what drives innovation, right? Think of these updates as more than just a new set of rules to follow. They're new tools in your toolbox. They open up a whole new world of possibilities for what we can design and build with steel. So the only real question left is, what will you build with them?